What's up, everyone? Welcome to Literary Souls. I am the host, Untamed Mando, and I have two lovely ladies with me. I've got Smilewall and Miss Martin Muse. And we're talking about Chronicles of Narnia. Why can't I speak the English? My God, I have my tea ready. I've been awake for more than 5 minutes. Who knows? How are you ladies doing this morning?
I'm a little bit slightly crazier than you this morning. How's that? We're all a mess.
Hey, it is what it is. We love it. That's what you're here for. Literary Souls is just book club, but book club, you don't always look great.
Oh no, my petals are just looking fabulous. As you can see, they're shining. So
yeah. Absolutely, your petals are magnificent, beautiful, wonderful.
You're pristine as normal.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so Mala, what have you been up to? We're doing some introductions for 2 seconds.
Introductions. I have been busy with fall things. Both of my sister-in-laws are due in the next 3 weeks, and I'm part of a wedding in the next 3 weeks too. So mostly surviving. And yeah, but I am awake today and on day 2 of migraine. So join the party. We are all like perfectly together this morning. We are so together, you can tell.
Perfect.
But super excited to talk about these books. The Silver Chair actually celebrated its publication birthday on Thursday.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And it was very interesting reading them through, especially back to back like this. I read them both last weekend, partially out loud to my parents, which was funny because my parents have never read the Chronicles of Narnia, I found out, and I was slightly horrified for the entire weekend. And it was very interesting reading them as adults. Like as an adult, like I last read the whole series about 7-8 years ago in college, and whole different view and light on the books 8 years older. Silver Chair, I would say, used to be probably my least favorite book, and I never understood why people really enjoyed it. It's still not my favorite book, but I have a much better understanding of it. So really whole new appreciation. So it was good to read through them again.
Fabulous. All right, Miss Martin Muse, what have you been up to? You have been a busy lady.
Oh yeah. Oh wait. yeah. Okay. The happy stuff I've been doing has been a lot of Pilates, a lot of swimming, a lot of going and getting pedicures, and spent a day at the spa. The reasons for it, though, are there's been a lot of illness going on, and I'm caregiving. So, but I always tell people, if you are finding yourself in that situation, if you can, you've got to take time for yourself. And this is one of the things I'm taking time for myself for, because I love talking about Chronicles of Narnia and good fantasy and what's good out there, because you don't have to sit around and inhale this garbage. There's plenty of good stuff that was written even before we were born, so go ahead and enjoy that.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. Let's say hello to the chat. What is up? Jacob Ironside. Good morning, y'all. Good morning to you too. And Bobin, he was one of the people I gave a heart attack to this morning, including myself and others, because my post decided to post an hour early. Sorry about that.
I'm sitting there making my tea, not an hour, like 45 minutes early or something. And I'm sitting there like making my tea, my London fog, getting ready to go. Animals are in their room. I'm like almost ready to go. And I'm like, I got like 35 minutes. I'm doing great because I'm obviously not at my house. I don't have internet. So I actually come to my church and sit in the front entryway. And I suddenly get this stream and I went, oh crap. Did I totally get the wrong time?
Oh no, I got the wrong time. It's fine. Yes, Jacob Ironside. We're kind of Leroy Jenkins it today. It's been one of those days. Fabulous as always. Okay, wait. You're transforming into an ear? What? Huh? I'm confused. Jacob says, hello, Mando, Schmile, and Teresa.
He's going to be lurking. Again. He's lurking.
Oh, he's lurking.
Okay, I'm on day 2 of a migraine, and my brain's working better than yours. We're doing great today.
So you have the brain cell is what you're saying, but the brain cell isn't doing great today. We have an inside joke for any of you who don't know. Smile a while when we were in college have this inside joke where if I'm having a great day, like if my brain is clear and focused and I can think properly, I have the brain cell. If I'm not thinking properly and clear, Smile has the brain cell. And
the problem being that I generally am the one thinking clearly. Like 99% of the time. So if you've ever wondered what's going on with Mando, it's because I just generally keep the brain cell to myself. I don't share it.
Because I've lost it before.
We all know what happens then. Someone needs to keep a job.
Right. So yeah, that's whenever I talk about, I guess Smile has the brain cell today. That is what we mean. We started this out in college because it used to be like clockwork. Like if I was just doing awesome, and then she wasn't doing awesome, but if she was doing awesome, I wasn't. We're just like, I guess we're sharing a brain cell. We don't know how it happened. It just did. But hey, college life, y'all.
What have you been up to, Mando?
I have been trying to grind things out on the YouTube sphere. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I have like a video coming out every day. I don't know if it's like helpful or not, but I mean, I call myself a content creator and I barely use YouTube besides live streaming. And I was like, I should give YouTube some love. So if you have not, please be watching my videos and please make sure you are subscribed. Apparently there was like 5 people that I talked to consistently and they were like, well, I thought I was subscribed. I'm not subscribed. And so, yeah, I had a really great bump up in subscribers the other day. It was just like 5 people. I was like, hey, look at me.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. I'll find that. Not with your channel. It hasn't happened with you yet, but it's like I'm subscribed and then I look and I'm not. And yeah. So before y'all go jumping off cliffs if you lose subscribers, it's not because people hate you. Maybe it's just YouTube. Yeah. So
absolutely, YouTube is weird. Yes, YouTube hates you, and always remember that. But we want to take their money.
Exactly, because it's a toxic relationship.
Absolutely, it's like I give you content, you give me money. You hate my content, but you're still giving me money. Except for right now, I don't have any money yet. We're gonna get there. Gonna happen. We're gonna have that awesome toxic relationship where YouTube can still tell me that my intro for Literary Souls has been copyrighted, but I can say no, nay. I'm gonna work on the intro for Literary Souls eventually again because I really like the intro. I worked really hard on, and I don't want to continuously get copyrighted by you, Amazon. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Probably get copyrighted now just because you said their name.
Probably. It happens.
I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry. That's not funny. It's terrible. It's horrible. Well,
that wasn't a ha-ha laugh, though. That was like a pained, like we all know it's true, and there's not really anything we can do about it.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Bowman. I appreciate it. At least somebody likes my content. I talked to my friend last night.
That was the good Midwestern laugh, Miss Martin. That was the good thing.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, the evil laugh. Oh, and also part of what's going on is I'm literally wrestling my cat, of course, because he's like, oh, she's on the computer. That means I've got to run across the keyboard, and I'm trying to move him and not knock over my microphone and all that stuff. And
I do have the pro of my cat and dog being at my house, and I am here.
There you go. Yeah. And he's doing like the dead weight toddler thing right now.
Very nice. Jacob, I will check my P.O. box later today and double check that I have gotten your ears. Okay.
That's very Jack the Ripper of you.
Right? Were you supposed to send those in the post? Because I feel like there's a law or something against that. But I'm not. Maybe
you're supposed to send the DHL, right? DHL Express. That's how you're supposed to send body parts.
Well, you seem to know a lot about this.
See, this is why we're friends.
I'll tell you no lies.
Oh dear.
Anyway, let's talk about Chronicles of Narnia.
Now. Oh, my mom's calling. See you later. No.
Whoopsie daisy. Welcome to Literary Souls, where we talk about random things like body parts. What? I don't know. Oh, it's a joke from Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
Oh,
Thank you. It's been like
we
almost
took that
15
really
years since.
dark.
It's been like 15 years since I've seen that movie. I don't remember everything about it. Whoops. Well, we learned new things about each other today.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't learn anything
Alright.
new about you, and you didn't learn anything new about me, Mando.
I mean, we don't have to let everyone know about our secret plan.
I
Shush.
mean,
Besides the plan that all of my friends seem to have to want to throw me off a cliff one of these days, I still don't understand why that started in college.
keep you on your toes because we tolerate you.
Oh my
See,
god.
these are my friend. This is my friend group, guys. That's all of like most of my friends are like this. So you wonder why I have internet friends.
It's like self-esteem issues.
It's all good. We love each
You just
other.
haven't
We
known her
still.
long enough.
That's so rude. How dare you? I should kick you out of the live stream, meanie.
You won't be
Dang.
lying.
How dare you? It's my best British accent I can give. It's horrible, I know.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's be fair. She's a Swedish person,
This is true, yes.
so
So
don't
her
insult
British
us.
accent.
Yeah, well, that's the way they teach English over there. That's why they all sound like Brits.
Oh, that's why. Well, I've adopted the tea for now, but this hopefully later on this week I'm gonna be going to the doctor and seeing if I can have caffeine again.
Yay!
Are you drinking caffeinated tea right now?
I am drinking a herbal tea.
Oh,
Mm.
I've got
I'm
it's
sorry.
fine. It's got a
I
little,
know we're all
honey
like,
in it.
my condolences.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, now we all feel bad for you.
it's fine. It's fine. All right. Well, I guess we should at least start talking about the topic that we're here to talk about. That's a lot of talking.
That's not why Jacob's here in the chat. Jacob's here because he knows we're going to talk about ridiculous.
Yeah, he thinks
yes,
we're gonna
Jacob.
be a bunch of good Christian girls. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
That just means
I
we
mean-
smile at the same time when we say the same things, right?
We can tell that
I
Teresa's
am
smiling,
my
of course.
church.
All right. So, Smile a while. Would you like to give the plot overall summary of The Silver Chair, because I believe that is the least known book of the Chronicles of Narnia. That's from my understanding.
Yes.
Most people I talk to about.
Last Battle is one of the least known. Last Battle is also the most controversial. I'm actually really glad that you're here, Miss Martin, just because having a more Catholic perspective on a book that was written by somebody who was Catholic and kind of understanding what maybe trying to get a different understanding of where C.S. Lewis came on with The Last Battle, because I'm like most of my reading groups I'm in are, definitely more Protestant Reformed, and oh my goodness, the hot debate over The Last Battle and whether or not Christians should be reading it is real.
Oh, well, let me be technical here, though. He was not a Catholic. Understand? So he was not showing. He was an Anglican. He was a Church of England Anglican.
Yeah.
And while he kind of shares some things that people might consider some Catholic views, like things like, oh gosh, I'll go into the technicalities, like baptismal regeneration or something. So what his point of view is not necessarily the Catholic view either. So we will have a very good discussion.
It'll be a good discussion there. So we'll get to that.
He was a Protestant, yeah.
But
I also
Silver Chair, these books are not as well known. I think people get really excited about like the intro story because you have like that same core kind of group, right? Like we see the professor in The Magician's Nephew. We have the beginning of Narnia. We have obviously Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the best known book. We have, the four siblings who are our most famous set of siblings, which carries over into Prince Caspian. And we have some of that same cast in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So those are our best three known books. Horse and His Boy sometimes gets forgotten about, which is just kind of sad because it happens during The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and really talks. It's one of the only books that we actually have a glimpse into the golden age of Narnia in. And then we have The Silver Chair, which is more of a whole new cast. We got to know Eustace a little bit in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And now we're coming back with him with another girl, and he's gone back only a couple months after the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So that summer, he and Lucy and Edmund are drawn into Voyage of the Dawn Treader. They have their whole adventure. They come back. It's still summer. He goes back to school, to a very questionable school, honestly.
Very questionable.
The most interesting thing to me in actually our introduction back into the book is that in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, when we first meet Eustace, he is introduced as Eustace, and he fairly deserves the name. Coming into the Silver Chair, we meet Eustace again, and he doesn't deserve the name. So that's kind of our glimpse into where we're coming to from a different character change. This is not the same Eustace of Voyage of the Dawn Treader that we're introduced to. He is a changed child because of his experiences in Narnia. You have to remember, he's never been in real land Narnia. He's been on a ship and on islands, but he's never been in Narnia proper. So he's never seen Cair Paravel. He's had a very, very limited exposure to Narnian people and the people of Narnia. So we are now back. They go through a gate. Jill, they tried to perform some weird ritual to get there, and
it was weird.
Like, oh gosh, he
was like, "Let's pray to Aslan," and it's just like, what? I mean, that's also.
But it wasn't even praying. He's just like chanting Aslan,
right?
It was weird. But the intro. So they're drawn into Aslan's country. We're on a cliff, and Jill, through a tussle, Jill essentially kind of pushes accidentally-ish Eustace off a cliff. Aslan breathes on Eustace and floats him towards Narnia. Jill has this whole encounter with Aslan right off the bat, and is given, because of her grievances and her selfishness and pride, is given the task of, it's not going to be harder, and they have to go rescue this prince who went missing 10 years ago, and bring him back. And she is given the 4 prophecy signs that she must follow. There's 4 signs they have to follow, and he makes her repeat them. And then he breathes her to Narnia as well. They proceed to fail immediately off the bat. Eustace should have talked to the old man on the stretcher, but he unfortunately doesn't recognize him, partially because he doesn't really quite get how much time has passed, and that the old man on the stretcher is the same prince that he was on, who's a young boy of 14, 15 years old on the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So he doesn't quite get the time gap, because now this man is very, very old. He is in the process of dying, and he wants to see Aslan one more time. He's heard there's a rumor, so he's getting on this boat, and off he goes. We have Trumpkin the dwarf, who we have met in past books too, who is now very, very old and very, very deaf. Profoundly deaf. And so they proceed to completely botch the first sign. He does not talk to the first person that they meet in Narnia, who is an old friend, and kind of just continues to go downhill from there. So they meet an owl. The owl helps them get onto their journey and introduces them to Puddleglum, who I had zero appreciation for as a child reading the book. I was like, I don't understand.
Whole outlook on life is just as a kid, you're like, why are you so sad and depressed?
Yeah.
And now as an adult,
I kept reading Puddleglum quotes to my dad, and my dad kept laughing, because that's definitely more my dad's outlook on life. And I'm suddenly glowing. Something changed outside light, and I'm just white.
You started talking about Aslan, and
the light of the Lord came upon
you. What's up, Emperor?
So they go off on their very depressing journey. According to Puddleglum, there's going to be no chance. And they kind of have to do this in secret, because there's been a ban put on looking for the prince, because nobody comes back from looking for the prince. And short story is that his mother was killed by this venomous snake, and he goes back to try to kill the snake and seek vengeance for his mother, and encounters a beautiful woman wearing a poisonous green dress, which should have been his first warning. And one day goes off to see her by himself and disappears and is never seen again. So they go on quite the journey through the land of the giants. They proceed to miss every single sign on their way, the first 3 signs. They encounter a woman of the green kirtle with a knight who does not talk, and she tells them that they should go to this giant's castle and they'll be gladly welcomed there. They get there, they basically get themselves trapped in, and then they realize that the giants are going to eat them for autumn harvest, and so now they're escaping the giants. In the process of escaping the giants, because they've now missed how many signs, they find the 3rd sign. They end up in a hole and are taken captive by the, what were they called? The Under-Earthlings?
I understood them as like the Underdark dwarfs for any of you who are D&D fans.
They're not even dwarfs. They're more like goblins. If you have the original,
I always saw them as like,
Overworlders.
well, I mean, what was Puddleglum again?
He was an owl thing, wasn't he? Or
the Marches of the Underland. He's a marshwiggle.
Oh,
yeah.
mind.
So yeah, you are correct. They look more like goblins.
Marshwiggles are not like ever talked about in any other book, but apparently the marshwiggles are like the main like people who do anything related to water, and he suddenly creates a whole new race coming into the silver chair.
Right. I was like, wait a second, who are these guys?
Confused me.
Yeah, this is a novel I know the least. I think I've only read it once before I reread it for this.
Earthmen. They're referred to
we
as Earthmen.
See, that's why I always thought that they were dwarves from the Underdark, as far as like,
and
that's how I always pictured them.
Well, and I know someone that thinks that the dwarves are the superior race.
Yes, but they don't think the
D&D or whatever. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about.
The Earthmen do not like dwarves.
This is true.
Anyways, they have captured them. They are taking them through the underworld. They take them past Father Time, who is sleeping, and a ton of other like animals that are sleeping, which we don't really have a description of what they are, but they do play a role in the last battle. They are the dragons and creatures that take over the world at the last battle and bring the destruction of Narnia. And Father Time.
I still love how you say dragons.
I'm a good Midwest. I'm a good Minnesotan. You need to go up north to where I was last week and into Norwegian County, and it was the best parade announcements ever. The amount of Norwegian accent was amazing. It was like everything classic Minnesota you'd ever think. They make it through. They are taken to the castle, and they are met by the prince of the underworld, who the queen isn't there at the moment, which actually ends up being a good thing. He makes this whole thing about how they have to be kept safe. For an hour every night, he turns into a venomous snake and he has to be chained to this chair. And they come in and realize, thankfully, they remember the 4th sign. Of all the signs that they have botched, they remember the 4th sign, which was the first person who asks you to do something in the name of Aslan, do it. And so really what happens is in that 1 hour, the prince becomes coherent and he becomes himself and not enchanted. And in the name of Aslan, he asks them to free him. He does manage, they free him. And then he actually breaks the chair, which was somehow part of what kept him enchanted. And so the enchantment's now broke. The queen comes in, there's a massive battle. She is trying to seduce them into staying there and being subdued and become, subdue them basically and re-enchant the prince. And the interesting thing is that this is where Puddleglum really becomes the most important character of the entire story. Mm-hmm. For all of his depressingness, he is the only one throughout this entire scene who, like, they're all being like, the smoke is like getting to their head. They are, totally falling for it. The prince and the children are standing with their heads down, but Puddleglum desperately is gathering his strength, and he walks over to the fire. He's the one who's like speaking truth to the queen the whole time. Like he's like fighting through. He's like, one of his most famous line here is that he walks over to the fire because he's been putting this stuff on the fire that's like making them sleepy. And he uses his bare webbed foot, which is apparently really tough to actually start. Like, he smothers the fire, and she gets really, really angry. And one of the most famous famous lines here is that he goes on to this massive monologue saying that, one word on all you've been saying is quite right, and I shouldn't wonder. I'm a chap who always likes to know the worst and then put the best face I can on it. So I won't deny any of what you said, but there's one thing more to be said, even so. Suppose we have only dreamed or made up all of these things, trees and grass and sun and moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have. Then all I can say is that, in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than the real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world. Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor one, and that's a funny thing when you come to think of it. We're just babies making up a game, if you're right. Four babies playing a game can make a play world which licks your real world hollow, and that's why I'm going to stand by the play world. I'm on Aslan's side, even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live as a Narnian as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia. So thank you kindly for our supper. We're going to leave, basically. And he goes off in this whole thing, and that's when she becomes angry, and she becomes a snake, and the prince kills the snake. And they proceed to escape back to Narnia, and he does get to see his father, basically like his father had encountered Aslan, and Aslan told him to go home, and that he would get to see his son. He gets off the ship, sees his son, and dies. And then Jill and Eustace,
anticlimactic.
Yeah, but he did get to see his son. They free the prince, and Jill and Eustace, during the celebration, Aslan comes and takes them back to his land, and actually the prince gets to come with them briefly, and gets to actually go into the real world really briefly to help them settle the score with the children chasing them, and Aslan gives him his wish to see the other side of the world, the other world, just for a moment. And that's where our story ends. Like, well, the school gets reprimanded and actually kind of gets looked into by the police,
right?
Which was really good. So there's a lot of really good that came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the story really isn't about Eustace and Jill saving the day. It's about Jill muddling up every single instruction she was given. Eustace just still kind of plunging on and kind of figure out who he is and being more firm in that. You kind of see a little bit more development of that. But it's really about this Marshwiggle, who seemed like he should be the most insignificant character, who's a kind of depressing tour guide, saving the day. He was the one who stands firm in Aslan. He is the one who stands firm in his belief. And he is the one who has the most faith.
Yes. To answer your question, Stig, about what books are those on my right. So my bookshelves have run out of space, and that's why I have my books here. So this is the entire collection of the Chronicles of Narnia. Like the old version. This is a bunch of Halo, from the new one starting at New Blood, and then the last one is The Last Light. I still don't have the full series of Halo yet. I'm still working on that. The Lord of the Rings trilogy with The Hobbit, some more Halo books, and then some more what you can't see over here in the corners, the Silmarillion, the Unfinished Tales, and the Lays of Beleriand. So I've got Tolkien there, C.S. Lewis here, and then some Halo in between. So yeah, for anyone who was curious on what books I have here. And eventually, the more books I read, I will be replacing some of these, except for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit, and then C.S. Lewis. This will probably shift and change. I might actually put The Witcher there, since I have the whole series.
My bookshelves are totally full. I have piles everywhere. And on top of that, I started collecting all the Redwall books I can find, and I'm working on wanting to collect all of the Wheel of Time books, which means I really need to get 2 more bookshelves. I have been hunting thrift stores for 5 months now and have found one copy of book 13 at a used bookstore for $15 in horrible condition.
Yep. So what kind of got us off track, Miss Martin Muse, is I was Stig asked what books were over here on my right, and I was letting him know. I was letting all of you know what books I have. It basically Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, Halo.
Yeah. No, I figured, no, it's all good. All my books are in the garage right now in boxes because of they're going to start tearing up my downstairs. I just saved my Bibles and my Tolkien and my Wheel of Time. that's readily on hand right now, and my Feist actually. Yeah.
And Hokies, I do agree with you about the good thing about ebooks. I don't know what is up with my StreamYard today. It's like not actually showing the comments when I need them to, but basically I also have a ton of ebooks like on my my Amazon Kindle account and stuff. Like I have tons of audiobooks, tons of ebooks. I'm just like, if it's going to be a book series I really like, I want a physical copy of it. I don't know what it is.
I use ebooks, I use audiobooks mostly from the library because I don't really want to invest in something that's not tangible. Especially something that's not tangible that can be edited because it's digital and it's you're actually buying rights to the use of it, not buying the book itself, which means that it is fully editable even after purchase. So if they decided that my favorite book was not correct to their current sensibilities, they could edit it and I have no choice. So having physical copies of books is very important to me because they are not editable. If I'm going to be taken in someday for having things that I shouldn't have, it's going to be because I was making sure that people had actual history at their hands.
Yeah, I have I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy on my Kindle, and they did change the covers of the trilogy on my Kindle, and I was furious. I about burned everything to the ground.
Well, if there's one thing
But
they die
anyway.
for, it is books. But yeah, knowledge and all that. But yeah, it's important.
Okay.
So
yeah,
for the silver chair, I have been told. Who do you guys think is the Green Witch? For a long time I was on the Jadis reincarnated camp, but as of the last like few years, I've switched to the maybe she's Lilith. And for those of you who don't know who Lilith is, it's a convoluted story. If you want, we can try and tell you, but
Lilith makes me cranky, not because of more modern, if you will, interpretations of what they're now trying to say. You know, that traditional Christianity is, it's really Lilith. It's all about Lilith. It's like, but when C.S. Lewis was around, people still had some brain cells left, and so if he was trying to do it was actually a little more in keeping with, but I never thought that she was Jade, because they even say she was like her, so I felt like she was like of the same spirit, kind of like you've got Satan, and then you've got like the smaller demons.
I always wondered if she was like a child of Jadis.
Or a relative.
I have not actually heard that theory before.
Yeah, I haven't either, but like that's what if you're going from like without internet really being a thing, when I was reading the original series, she has a lot of the same in like tensions and same heart, but that doesn't mean anything. Like I was adult, like reading like the Ransom trilogy, like was she actually related or was she of the same spiritual possession? Like if you want to go into like see how C.S. Lewis thinks about, Space Trilogy, where Satan himself like was in the man Watson, and he was vicariously trying to control the world through Watson, and Watson was no longer an entity there. Like, so with knowing the Space Trilogy was first, he was kind of playing with that same idea, like, hey, like the same demonic possession that like made Jadis want to rule the world is still there, even though Jadis is dead. And this is still like that same evil. Because it's that same concept of evil, right? Her whole goal was like that she had brought up these underlings. The Earthmen were actually from like a deeper spot within the Earth, like they're the universe down there. And so they return, the enchantment breaks, and they return to their world below. But her plan was to force them to go up to the Earth, and they don't like going up above the Earth. But they were going to take over Narnia. Like they were like literally like within feet of breaking into the heartland of Narnia. Because it's obviously the same bad intent, right? Like Jadis wanted Narnia. Like there's something good about Narnia and Jadis wanted it destroyed. And now you have the snake venomous queen, who's also trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, Stig brings up Jadis, according to Lewis, did represent like a false god, but a lot of people are trying to figure out who the Green Witch is, because we don't really get any mention of her beforehand. We don't get any mention of her after. She's just only in the silver chair, and so just
Maybe it's
like
because
what
it
you were
doesn't
talking about.
matter.
Maybe, but it's fun to think about. I think with you mentioning she like Jadis maybe had a child. Like, what if Jadis, like, because she was half giant, went up to the giants, reproduced, and this is the
Ew. Sorry. Go ahead though. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't need that image in my head.
That was,
No,
that
but
was a very
it-
middle school reaction, but that was like, could not.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
so
here's
glad I
my deal.
practiced already.
Here's my thing, because this is why I have a little bit of a bone to pick with C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, I'm pointing the finger of judgment at you, because I think he should, like, if you're going to do something like that, I think you need to help along the audience a little bit, especially because this is children's literature. You know what I mean? And
Children
it's
wonder.
yeah, they wonder. I mean, like, for example, what he did in Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, it's really obvious. It's like, oh, Father Christmas comes when the Aslan comes and all that. But yeah, the whole thing with false god, I personally don't know, because I have not read like Lewis's letters and all that commentary on it. I've read some of them, but
it's been a
I
while.
think that he should have helped us out. He should have.
I agree. I think as far as his world building, like, while on one end Tolkien I don't even want to say over, but like very detail, like filled in his world and thought about his world and tried to make sure there was backstories after backstory after all of that. And then Lewis is like, hey, I wrote a world. Well, how did the world get there? Oh, it was just kind of sung here. Like, okay, well, what happened between the first book and the second book? Stuff.
Oh, well.
I mean, yeah, I can
She's a false
understand
god.
why Tolkien spent some time frustrated with Lewis, right? Because they were writing at the same time, and Tolkien has this like crazy, in-depth, thought-out world, and C.S. Lewis sometimes feels it's just as imaginative, but sometimes feels a little bit more slapped together. In comparison, he was writing for a very different audience. He was writing for your, middle school, elementary, versus Tolkien's more older childhood adult. And so a very different audience you're trying to reach in writing style. But like, yeah, Magician's Nephew, the beginning of the creation of the world and the last battle were afterthoughts that happened after the rest of the series.
He wasn't going to write Magician's Nephew or Last Battle or Silver Chair.
But
it was just going to be
so many questions from kids going, how did the world begin? What happened? They wanted the beginning and they wanted the end. So he wrote them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this a little bit goes
sorry, Bobin. You really should read the books, because the movies are like trying to look at a really amazing painting from about 100 feet away and going, yeah, there's red on that painting. Maybe it's a sunset. And then going, yeah, it looks like a good painting. And it's incredibly detailed artwork. Nothing compared to Tolkien's world building, crafting abilities. But C.S. Lewis really was a fantastic fantasy writer. There's a reason his books have stood up for 50 years.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, when I'm pointing the finger of judgment, it's like, hey, they're his books. Technically, he can do what he likes. That perhaps, I'm just saying, perhaps, this is complete speculation on my part, he forgot that the whole idea of children's literature is just as adult literature, but it's just accessible to children. And C.S. Lewis wrote about that a lot, and with not C.S. Lewis, sorry, Tolkien, his essay on fairy tales, and G.K. Chesterton did a lot of things, is that fairy tales are actually very profound stories. So perhaps he fell a little bit into that fallacy. I'm going to write a story, perhaps, because I know that there's probably people that are far better C.S. Lewis scholars than I am, and I am willing to be corrected on that. And maybe that's just where it is. And it's just annoying, I guess, to me more than anything else, because I am just able to go, okay, fine, you're not going to tell us, fine. But, Jada Light character, what does she represent? She represents a false god, evil thing, the whole snake imagery. It's like, okay, I got it. She was bad.
I've always kind of, it's like, my brain just always goes to, it's like having a autistic and an ADHD friend writing books at the same time. You have Tolkien, who is incredibly, incredibly detailed in his world, and the amount of focus and obsession of building this world and perfecting it. Mm-hmm. And then you have Lewis, who's like an ADHD writer, and you kind of, how you sometimes just assume that like everyone else knows what you're thinking, and so you don't really feel like you need to say, or you just forgot to say it because you were so excited about whatever other part of the story you were telling.
Hello, Elijah. Welcome.
I feel like the biggest apology on the planet. Lee, I am so sorry. Donnie and I have had the week from hell. Like, no joke. I could send you.
Sounds like our morning.
Like my mom cries. It's been a roller coaster. I am so incredibly sorry.
It's fine. Don't you worry.
I feel so bad.
It's fine. I'm glad you were able to make it. I am so happy that you were able to make it. Don't you even worry about it. We got off track talking about ears and random things, so don't you even worry about it.
Don't listen to a word Untamed Mando says. We are going to hate you and hate you forever. She's just trying to be nice.
You're just joining the mess party, Elijah. I've had a migraine for 2 days.
Oof. I apparently don't know how to post anything.
Yeah, and I'm having a nervous breakdown. So yay, we're all good.
There it is. We didn't have internet for 2 weeks. We lost power. Pretty sure someone got shot in our neighborhood. I don't know where. Yeah, it's been one of those weeks. I just feel like everyone's had.
My brother mentioned that.
I feel all you ladies.
Mm-hmm.
It's hey, and we've got an Arcasul in the chat. What's up, my dude? And apparently my internet has been acting weird. I know, right? Weird. So for those of you who are like, why is Mando looking so confused? It's because StreamYards is like telling me that I highlight something and then it doesn't highlight, but then it highlights later, and I'm just kind of confused on what I'm highlighting at the moment. I hope it's Arcasul's comment I'm highlighting because I don't see anything.
Yeah, it is.
It's because
we don't see anything on StreamYards. Sorry. StreamYards.
I see it.
Yeah, I like to smile. Oh, there we go. Yeah, smile a while for me. I actually think that what you just said about the analogy of C.S. Lewis being like the ADHD fantasy writer versus the more autistic, that's the best analogy I think I've heard in a while to just describe how they view their stories.
Every time I read about any interaction between C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, that's all that comes to mind. I mean, I'm fairly autistic. My brother is more so. He has friends who are ADHD, and reading their interactions reminds me of my brother, in whatever obsession and passion he's currently in, whether it was airplanes when he was younger or coffee for the last 8 years, trying to explain his passion to one of his ADHD friends. And it's I see it.
Yeah, no, you got it. Yeah.
And they love each other. They're great friends. But I see the same frustrations. Tolkien's frustrations with Lewis are mirrored in my brother's frustrations with some of his profound ADHD friends. I'm like, I think that's what's going on.
And it's all because Lewis just wouldn't tell us who that chick was.
The Green Witch, I must know.
Just tell us. It's like she's kind of like Jadis, but not really.
So if you could ask a question to any dead person in the entire history of time, that's the one question you would choose to ask?
Yes. Excuse me, Lewis. Who is this Green Witch? I must know. Is she Jadis? Is she Jadis's offspring? Is she just a random chick that you only made up for this one book? I must know.
This is literally world changing. You will change the universe.
You don't understand that, in some C.S. Lewis circles, this is an actual big, huge debate.
See,
I've seen it. I kind of
that
Googled it. It was insane.
the
I always
dash
took her to
arguments
be-
from. Sorry.
I always took her to beat Jadis. I'm jumping in a conversation I was not privy to because I saw you live and I was like, oh my gosh, I've gotten my days mixed up, so I had a full-on panic attack. But I don't know. I
So
always
you're the
took her to
4th
beat
person I
Jadis.
gave a panic attack to this morning.
We're just You're on a roll, Mando.
Take your heart medication when you're around Mando people.
I had to take so much. I had to take so much magnesium last night to help me get to sleep after I saw what they're trying to pull in New Mexico. So I've just that's not helped matters any. So yeah, I'm just but yeah, I always took her to be like some sort of like remaining remnant of Jadis. I could be 1000% wrong, but yeah, I have to agree. The witch in the silver chair, she's always bugged me about like who is this? You know,
we don't really even have a true name for her. In all honesty, like we have. She's there's never a name given to her. She's the green curdle. She's the lady of the green curdle. She is
the snaky snake. Hello, Lady Marie. Welcome in.
Venomous green is literally the best description we have of her.
Yep. The only description we get is she is like Jadis.
Yeah.
That she is not Jadis, but that she is like Jadis, which is confusing as heck.
Yeah, it's like so helpful.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like, would it be out of the realm of possibility that, like, again, like, Lewis did not write at the level of detail Tolkien did, obviously. And he left a lot to the imagination of, like, what was and wasn't. I have to imagine that, like, Jadis had underlings that shared her vision, that were of like the spirit realm, like almost like kind of like the Silmarillion, like the Maiar, right? Like Balrogs were of the same kind of like deity level as Sauron was. So I almost have to wonder, like that's also what I've wondered, if she was like some sort of underling that fled during the battle and went to a place where she could like cement her power, like, you know, like a Sauron to Morgoth kind of thing. You know what I mean?
See, that's a much better theory than what I came up with on the fly, and it kind of made Smile and Teresa cringe a little bit because. Do you want me to say it again? I'm sorry. Hey, basically,
Mando's theory is that she thinks that Jadis, because she was half giant, went and found the giants in the north and procreated.
That's actually
yeah, exactly. No one wants that image in their head.
Like, but it makes sense. Like she sent Eustace and Jill to the giants in the north. Like, so she had a relationship with them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe that's why Lewis never told us.
He's like, this is too disturbing for children to know my true thoughts on where she came from.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
I told you, Ark.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that, Alasia, because about Sauron and
you asked for it,
and Morgoth, because I was thinking about that too. It was like Satan versus like a lesser demon situation.
Yeah.
Which kind of, I mean, that if you're looking at the fact that they were friends, like you have to have those influences. Like you have to take into account that there was probably conversations. It wasn't like these books were being written in the void where like they wrote all of these books in like complete lockdown in their little houses and like wrote these series and then came out and they're like, look what I created. Like these were guys who were meeting together and parts of conversations and ideas were being thrown around, and there was a lot of the same cultural influences and conversations that would have been affecting their writing.
Like the whole Numenor situation and everybody got so bitter about. Was it
Ark? If you have a migraine, join Smile. She's had one too. But I didn't give her migraine. I just gave everyone a heart attack.
No, mine's actually getting better as I'm on around like 4 caffeination. So I think that caffeine's helping get some of the edges of it gone.
Hello, I would highlight your comment, but for some reason StreamYards is acting all stupid and I'm afraid to yeet myself out of the stream because what happened last week. And for those of you who don't know what happened last week, my interweb just decided to reset itself in the middle of my stream.
Yep.
And Ark was just left alone talking about something he didn't know he would be talking about.
Hey, my computer just tried to restart in the middle of the stream, so you know.
Well, there we are.
Hey, technology. Yep. Okay, there we go.
See,
it did highlight
The
it.
interesting
We
thing
can't
is
see it.
that like we started this conversation, and I know we haven't gotten to the last battle yet. But in my corner of the internet, in a lot of like the book groups I'm in on like Facebook and Instagram, I generally end up in more in the Christian world what we call like reformed groups. So groups that are more Calvinistic in theology and philosophy, which I would probably lean more that way than Arminian, whole different theology conversation. But in that corner of the world, the hottest debate over C.S. Lewis is in Chronicles of Narnia specifically, because you don't even want to get down into the amount of fire and
Oh no.
yeah, that happens when like between the people who like really vehemently believe that we should not be reading anything by C.S. Lewis as Christians, and the people who are like, hey, there's good stuff here, you can read it and filter through, even with some of his maybe theology you don't agree with, it's good stuff, read it, is the discussion of tax in the last battle.
We will get to that because I've seen some of those debates about the last battle.
Yeah. Wait,
there's
sorry, you broke up a bit. The discussion of who in the last battle?
Tax.
Oh
Yes.
You know what debate we're talking about. We'll get to there. We'll get to there. But we're still on the silver chair right now. So one of the cool things, though, about the silver chair is we get to see bits and pieces of what's going to happen in the last battle. We see a sleeping, creatures. It's like, what is this? Is this Father Time? Which you come to find out later on. It is Father Time that you see in the silver chair. So like the silver chair and the last battle were written right after each other. They had to have been, because there's so many things that we see in the last battle that come straight from silver chair. And then also a little bit of Magician's Nephew, because Magician's Nephew was like right around that same time too. But you can definitely see when Lewis was writing the rest of the tales of the Chronicles of Narnia, besides the Chronicles of Narnia, because
no. Ooh. I mean, closely in time. So Silver Chair was published in 1953. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, 1952. Horse and His Boy, 1954. Magician's Nephew, 1955, and the last battle was 56.
Well, the Magician's Nephew and the last battle definitely makes sense. The Silver Chair, really?
So the Silver Chair was written before Horse and His Boy. Magician's Nephew to Last Battle makes way more sense, but it also, if he's writing about this world and having to finish off the world, he has to pull from what he's created for the ending of the world. You can't have too much world breaking when you're writing books to begin and end your world at the end of your whole series.
It's his theories. He can do what he wants. He can give us his toys, or he can take his toys away.
No, don't take it away.
Don't take the toys away. I mean, there are, like, if you look on the Narnia wiki, which yes, there is a Narnia wiki. There, like, a lot of fans have like kind of pieced together like the in-betweens in the Chronicles of Narnia, which is really cool if you guys are ever curious on what people have been able to piece together about the Chronicles of Narnia. But yeah, it's interesting to note that basically C.S. Lewis was like, here's my stuff. I'm not going to go into any further detail. But Lewis, like, what do you mean? What happened after the Pevensies left? What happened before the Pevensies got there? What happened after the creation of Narnia? What happened after? What? How Lormans even come to exist? How did all of this? And he's just like,
Yeah. Well, of course, I think I'm very concerned that that's exactly the theory that this new TV show is going to go with. Like, you're doing it in a positive way. They might go, well, since doesn't everyone want to know? Well, guess what? They were really.
I don't want you to tell me about it, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if that happens, I might go off because I'm just that angry. But yeah, no. it's all that. But here's the thing: were you profoundly moved this time around? I was moved in a way I wasn't moved before about the final scene with Caspian and his son. You know, maybe because I was younger, I wasn't as moved before, but that really kind of tugged at my heartstrings. I mean, I kind of teared up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Thoroughly teared up. I don't remember feeling anything in my younger years.
Yeah.
And that's what when I said, like, I feel like The Silver Chair is one of those, like, much lesser known, like, Narnia books. Like, I feel like that's part of the reason why is because, like, just it's very rarely talked about, and it's not yes, it's still for younger kids, but it's kind of the more, besides the Last Battle, it's one of the more mature books, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. I think it's a needed time filler between the beginning and the end of Narnia, because in the scheme of how Narnia timeline in the world travels, we obviously see in the Last Battle that, you know, the professor and Polly are still alive. So it's been 70-ish years in our time, and what's been literally ages,
thousands of years.
In Narnian time, we have gone from creation to the end of Narnia in the span of 70 Earth years. And so there's some pretty big gaps that have to be filled between, you know, everything happening a little bit closer succession, per se, from the golden age of Narnia to the end of the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, to the Last Battle. So this is really the only book we have that bridges that gap. And in some ways, it almost feels like a story talking about, like, the remnant of the faithful, right? Like, the Narnia is getting darker. There is more animals that are losing their ability to speak. You have less of that happening. We see even more of that destruction, obviously, coming into the Last Battle, kind of like the fall of Narnia. But this is our last glimpse into, like, the faithful Narnia and the core of those who believe in Aslan, who are still holding true to Narnia, before we get into the steady downfall of Narnia.
Kind of very quick. It's kind of like you're on a cliff, and when we get to the Last Battle, in my opinion, as far as, like, the history of Narnia, it's like the Golden Age, then we get to Caspian's rule, and everything's kind of okay, and then Last Battle is just like, and everything dies.
I think there's an interesting note in the Last Battle that it's a conversation between, is it the Last Battle or is it Silver Chair? Because I read them back to back in, like, 2 days, so I don't quite remember.
See, I read them, like, right back to back as well, so I'm just like, they're kind of bleeding into each other.
Between Jill and Eustace and somebody in Narnia discussing, like, man, like, Narnia is always in turmoil. Like, every time we come here, there's horrible things happening. And maybe it was the Silver Chair. And I don't know, somebody who remembers can comment on that. And the Narnians' response in the conversation was that, you have to remember that there has been generations of kings of good years. And when you guys are called to Narnia, it's because there is a problem that needs to be solved. I think
it's Aslan who says that to Eustace in the Silver Chair.
See, I think
that towards the end, one of the later conversations,
the owl or the last prince of Narnia in the last. I don't remember.
Trace, do you remember who had that conversation?
I don't. I'm so sorry. Like, for some odd reason, the Silver Chair, like, next to The Horse and His Boy, is one of my favorites. But ironically, even though she's told to remember the signs, and there's that whole thing about remembering the signs and how they get to find the prince. I struggle to remember this book. Like, I really do. I don't know why. Like, I just can't retain. Every time I've read it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what it's about.
There's not as many, like, high points in the book. It feels kind of more like, and I think it goes back to Mando was talking about it being more like a mature book, where like if you're looking at children's fiction books, like junior fiction kind of things, you have multiple moments of high because you're keeping the reader's attention throughout the story. So like we look at The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you have the meeting of the fawn, you have the meeting of the White Witch, you have the meeting of Aslan, you have all of this constantly, right? It's like a pretty intense moment towards like the climax of the story, Aslan dies, etc. You know, you go into the battle in there. Where this feels like a much slower progression.
Yeah.
It feels more like a journey of faithfulness despite, the book reminds me of, in some ways, it's The Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I agree. Because like that Pilgrim's Progress, I haven't read that since middle school, I think. So it's been a while. But yeah, no, I think that's a good
like you have the few moments where like, you know, Pilgrim enters a city and has this moment where he has to make a choice, but like makes the right choice, even though like, you know, he thought about making the wrong choice. You have like those moments throughout the books. It feels like The Pilgrim's Progress, which was written at the time. And we know what influenced C.S. Lewis is actually becoming a Christian, which is why he wrote The Pilgrim's Regress. So yeah, it feels like that, like that kind of same story where it's not quick, easy, peppy read.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, so I gotta be honest, and because like I just spaced everything that was not, you know, RAC not working or our power being out. I didn't read. I've got to fess up and say that I didn't read because I literally just forgot everything this week. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't remember.
Yeah, who it was. Everybody Google. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
There's this.
Yeah. Well, one thing that struck me, because, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm looking for some explicit, like, kind of Christy things. Christy. You know what I mean? Like, that's a new word for, like, Christianity-ish thing. Well, remember how herself, Jill, had to recite every night 4 things that Aslan told her. And, of course, that just reminded me of, there's not 4 things, but it's definitely a part of, you know, my daily devotions and stuff, like things that you will repeat, like the armor of God, you know, those certain scripture verses, God so loved the world, you know, that there's certain things you need to repeat, you need to know, and you know, daily morning offerings and evening offerings. I that struck me as almost something talking about Christian devotion and or devotions that we do. And then when she didn't keep reciting it, it got out of sight, out of mind, and then she forgot, and he kind of rebuked her for that. I don't know if that's the interpretation, but that's what I felt.
I could see that. That's such a deep part of traditional, especially Jewish, the Jewish faith, that, you know, how many times in scripture do you see, like, you know, you repeat the scriptures to your children in the morning when you rise, and on your doorstep when you come in, and when you go out, and when you lay down at night. Like, we're supposed to be constantly repeating the faithfulness of God as...
Yeah, I mean, like, Bible wasn't written down, you recited it.
Yeah. And this whole idea of, well, you know, and of course, the whole, even when we had the Bible written down, you know, a lot of people weren't literate. The printing press changed all that. So, yeah, for most people, it was recitation. And you know, that's a tradition that, you know, has been a part of me, that, you know, you memorize the scriptures. You know, you read them too. But, you know, there are certain things. And you're right about the Jewish thing. You know, here are, what is it? The one, our Lord, our God is one, you know, that kind of thing would be something that they recite. So I just thought that was maybe an homage to that. I don't know, but that's just what really struck me. And his kind of, he was rebuking, he was a little harsh on Jill. Am I right on that? Like in general? I felt
that he was a little harsher on Jill, that like, even at the time, like when my first reading, I was like, okay, she's like, this is her first time in Narnia.
Yeah.
Being so hard on her, like he wasn't even that hard on Susan or Lucy.
No.
Maybe he knew that she had the possibility of what to become. It's like when you know, if you're working with kids and you know what they're capable of, it's easier to set higher expectations because you know they're capable of more. And so you don't lower the bar to the child, you give them the tools to get to the bar. And so he's trying to push Jill to become more than what she is. And we do see her faithfulness continue throughout, like, she's in the last battle. But yeah, he definitely is much more firm with her on first introduction. It's the reminder that, if you go back to the beavers, he is, of course he's a lion, but he is not a tame lion, but he is good.
Yes.
That he knows what is best, but doesn't always feel nice in the moment.
Agreed. And like it kind of brings us to the horse and his boy when he scratched what's her face on the back, and he's like, that's what you get for doing that to your servant. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Is there any more talking or any more things we want to point out about the silver chair, the very pretty chair that gets smashed?
Well, it also there's a lot more breathing. Okay, wait, that sounded wrong. Breathing, like, because you know how Jesus would breathe on the apostles when he gave them charisms and stuff. And no, I'm just saying, I noticed that Aslan, when he was doing things like when he was sending them to Narnia, he was breathing, that the Holy Spirit. That's what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you meant.
There was so much breathing.
Jesus was going around breathing heavily on everyone all the time.
You know what I mean? Like breathing, Jesus would breathe on people for the Holy Spirit. Like he breathed on them, received the Holy Spirit, who sends you forgiven, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and the breath of God over the waters, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just saying.
This brings up another topic about Christianity in general. People who have no idea about Christianity, it's like, wait, he breathed?
It's a thing.
I think
this is not the podcast to explain all of the things.
No. We're talking about how things can be forgettable, and I was sitting here flipping through the last couple chapters trying to find the spot where the discussion about Narnia having good years in between happened, and realized I kind of forgot chunks of the last chapter even. So Caspian dies, and Aslan comes, takes them away back to his land, and brings Rilian with them. No, he brings Caspian with them. No, you're right.
Yes.
See, this is the whole thing. Is that I'm giving you the feedback or the lowdown. I was like, yeah, the prince goes with them. He goes back to the world. No, it's Caspian. I forgot this part. It's Caspian. So they go back to the pool, and Caspian's dead body is there, except it's younger, and he has.
Well, no, it's at first it appears in the pool older, and everyone's sad, and then Aslan asks Jill, or was it Eustace or somebody, to stab him in the paw, and then his blood. When you think about some of the stuff, I'm just like, wait a second, this is Chronicles of Narnia.
And he grows younger because we're in the land of Aslan. He's being, Aslan's blood has been shed for the life of Caspian, which is slightly confusing since Aslan shed his blood in Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, but we don't need to start another theological discussion on him shedding his blood multiple times and multiple sacrifice. And Caspian and Eustace have this reunion of the stories of old, in that he's you did reach the end, and Caspian actually finally gets some interesting closure on the Voyage of the Dawn Treader that we don't really realize that he never gets. There's no Aslan doesn't come to them and be like, hey, just so you know, Reepicheep and Edmund and Lucy and Eustace reached the end of the world, and I sent them home and everything's all good. Caspian had no idea what happened his entire life. He marries the daughter of the star, has a son, Rilian, who has disappeared for 10 years after his wife was killed by an evil snake queen. His son is brought back literally moments before he leaves Narnia in death. And he never had closure, but he just continued to live faithfully. Caspian is such a story of faithfulness. He just continued to live faithfully, and he wanted to see Aslan one last time. He gets to go into England and fight this one last battle,
right?
With Eustace and
with
Jill,
school kids. It's weird. When you think of it,
so weird.
Wait, he's like a king and he's fighting school children.
So weird.
It's still cool.
So weird.
It is. It's super cool.
Okay, we've all fantasized about that. All right, no one likes a bully.
We've all fantasized about that. Yes.
Yes,
maybe
we've
not
all
a kiss.
fantasized about
Getting
our
to fight
boys
one
getting.
last battle
Well,
with
it's getting
Caspian.
through.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, we should probably move on to the last battle if we ever want to get to it before I have to go take my dog to his vaccination appointment.
All right. So, do you want to once again, Smile, give us a brief overview of the last battle, and then we shall discuss, because we all know how I am about brief overviews. They're
You
never
don't remember
brief.
half the story, and you don't remember half the
Yes.
story. You remember weird points of the stories. So last battle, we are back with. Last battle is one of the only books that doesn't start, or is it the only book? Well, okay, Horseman's Boy. That's all in Narnia, but it's the only book where we actually start with the prince of the last king of Narnia. And Jewel the Unicorn, we actually are introduced first to like this ape and this donkey, and this ape is taking like full advantage of this donkey, creates the donkey to find the lion skin, convinces the donkey to put it on, and starts basically a cult around this not donkey Aslan. In the background, he has made a deal with the Calormen and is starting to cut down the trees of Narnia and kill the druids. And sell the Narnians to the Calormen to go work in the mines, and selling the horses and saying it's all in the name of Aslan. So we have the king and his unicorn Jewel, who is frequently on the cover of the books with a blood-stained horn, who are really some of the only animals, creatures, humans who are like still fighting for true Narnia. And he's like, I don't know what to do. So he goes and he attacks. They kill a Calormen. Jewel does, the unicorn, and he's tied to this tree because they are going to probably want to, kill him because he's, now he's the sign of everything bad because he challenged them, and he falls asleep and basically has a vision of England. And what the interesting thing is that like everybody who's been to Narnia in England, except for Susan, which she has at this point fallen away and doesn't believe the fairy tales of Narnia. So we have they have been getting together for like dinner once a year, which just seems kind of weird when you look at the age gap between like Jill and Eustace and Diggory, Diggory and Polly, who's like the professor in Polly, right? And they get together for dinner, the 7 of them. So Diggory, Polly, Peter, Edmund,
Lucy,
Eustace, and Joe. And the professor feels like something is wrong. Like they have this gut instinct that something's happening and they need to get back to Narnia. And they're just discussing Narnia and they feel like there's something going on. And he appears in their dinner as a ghost, a vision, basically.
Projection.
And
ghostly apparition.
Has an interaction with Peter, the High King, who's like, who are you? And he then disappears back into his own body, and that's all he sees. On the England side of things, they're like, we need to get to Narnia. Something's going on. Like, something bad's happening. We need to get there. Like, how do we get there? The only time we've ever intentionally gone to Narnia without the help of Aslan is with the rings. So the whole plot, Professor does not own the house anymore. Remember this. He buried the rings in the backyard under the tree from the apple seed, right? So Edmund and Peter travel to London, dress up as workers, and climb over the fence of his old backyard to dig up the rings. And they're all on this train to come meet together to send Eustace and Jill back to Narnia, because this is like their last resort. Jill and Eustace are on the train. They're all traveling to meet at this train track. They're almost actually to the station. And they feel like they were like snapped into Narnia. And they actually describe it at the beginning of the book saying they feel like there was a moment of impact, like the train, something was happening with the train, and they were pulled forcefully into Narnia. And it was not a gentle feeling. And they free the prince and continue to help free Jewel the Unicorn. They start trying to help find Narnians who are loyal and who are true. They actually find Puzzle the Donkey. They go to this place and they dress up as Calormans. They're kind of like this crazy adventure of trying to figure out what can we even do? Like what are we capable of doing? And they see Tash, the god Tash, running through the night. He has like multiple arms, and he's
Very
not
scary.
a nice god, and he is running through the night towards the place that they have all been meeting and having these crazy cultish bonfires. And they go back to, they're going to try to like reveal the donkey as not being Aslan, and then like because they realize the donkey had been taken, they create this whole story about how he wasn't, and then they start trying to say that Aslan and Tash are the same thing, so he's Tashlin. Narnia was decaying very, very quickly at this point in time. And so there's this stable. Everything centers around this stable that Puzzle the donkey had been kept in and being brought out and paraded in the firelight as Aslan. And they had set up this whole scheme that they were going to send people in to face Tash and face Tashlin to see his face, because Tashlin was no longer coming out to greet them. Little did they know, one, that Tash was actually now in the stable, in the alternate universe of the stable. You kind of got to
know how he got there
with like acceptable fantasy. He's there, and it's also like Narnia, yeah. But they, in this world, they had a sentry inside, and he was supposed to like kill the person and then like spit the body out because Tashlin was not happy with it. Instead, the Calorman's head lieutenant, who's like, I don't really like think this is like all on the good side. He wasn't really sure. Like he was a follower of Tash, and he's like, I don't really think that like you're doing what Tash would say is good. And he goes in, sees the sentry, kills the sentry, flips the sentry out the door, and realizes like, I'm in this really pretty place. And he goes and he just there, but he never comes out the door.
Stands there.
The cat goes into the door and quits speaking and runs away and is no longer a talking cat. Then the huge battle starts. People start getting shoved in the doors. Eustace is killed in the battle. Jewel the Unicorn is killed in the battle. Jill is shoved in the room. Like people are dying. Basically, end of the world, massive battle. People are dying left and right. Except that when they get into the world of the stable, it's not the stable. It is a different Narnia. It's a different place. They know that they're in a place that's better. And they're greeted by Professor and Polly and Peter and Lucy and Edmund. And Eustace is there. He is alive, but they all look better than they'd ever looked before. And Jewel the Unicorn is there. And so we kind of get this regrouping of everybody coming back together. There's a whole interaction with like Tash is there. Like there's like a dark side. Like if you come through the door, there's like a darkness area, and Tash is there. So like Tash is like taking some of them, and like Aslan like chases him off. The dwarves are so set on not believing in Aslan or Tash that they think that they're still in a moldy stable eating moldy stuff, and they can't open their eyes and see Narnia. And Lucy is very sad for them. And then Aslan turns to the door, and basically like they see like a progression of time happening very quickly. They see the battle happening. They see darkness fall. Aslan calls forth Father Time, and Father Time wakes up, and the world starts flooding, and dragons come. We see the age of dragons and dinosaurs, and they wake up from the silver chair, and they rule the world until they all kill each other, and then the sun dies, and the world ends. And he closes the door, and then he explains to the children that they did die in England, that there was a train crash, and that their parents passed away on the train because they were on the train too. That the children who were on the people who were on the station walkway thing waiting for the train crashed into them. They also died. And they continue to go up and farther into Narnia, which is a bigger Narnia than ever existed. And it's Lewis's picture of recognizing that like there's a new heaven and a new earth, in that The old has passed and the new has come, and that it's even better. That like this is our world is just a shadow of the real heaven and the real earth. And then the biggest discussion that people have and the biggest debate in the Christian world with this book is that he has a discussion with the Calorman captain who has a discussion. They have this whole discussion back and forth about like, I believed in Tash. I don't know if I believe in you. And he's like, well, Tash is the god of bad. So whatever good you did for Tash actually was for me. And anything people do bad in my name was actually to him. And yeah, discuss. Let's open that floodgate.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the Christian ideology, Protestants do not agree that is how things run with the conversation between Aslan and the worshiper of Tash. So that's kind of where a lot of this debate is. But before we get into the battle at hand,
I'll have to conveniently go before you start the internet dumpster fire of that discussion. Hey, we'll get you views somehow, girl.
It is what it is. So basically understanding that the last battle is basically C.S. Lewis's idea of what Armageddon is going to look like, what Revelations is going to look like, all of the end time stuff thingamabobbers. Grabs popcorn. Oh no, Ark, we're not gonna. But I actually, when I first read this story, at least over 15 years now, it was actually one of my favorites out of the series for a while. But that was also when I was reading a lot of Revelation, when I was doing a lot of what is it called when you study the end times? Eschatology. Yes. I was really big into that for a while, and so that at that time it was my favorite. Right now, I'm still torn between The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and The Magician's Nephew being my favorite, but this is still one of my top favorites because it does make you think. It does make you ask questions. What are you guys' thoughts on the book, Miss Martin Muse and Elijah?
Wait, are we talking about the last battle book?
The last battle, yes.
Oh yeah. So, I thought we were going to save it for the next stream. Well, I'll just tell you right now. I don't know that whole idea that's not in any Christian revelation I know about, and so I don't know what C.S. Lewis meant. I mean that's just ridiculous. I'm just saying, it's just I don't know where he gets that idea at all. It's just, oh look, we lost her. Yeah. So it's a total misreading of justification and deeds and goods, and I have no problem saying he's wrong because he's wrong. There we go. At the end. but I need to reread the book to get some more detail about it and do some more research and seeing what some of the different, like what did C.S. Lewis himself have to say about it. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, the general first Googling of it is that most people would agree that Tash is supposed to be the representation of Satan, and they were worshiping him, that he is the antithesis of Aslan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't serve two masters. The end. Yeah. And who knows? Yeah, like I said, I just need to reread it.
Yeah, no, same. I don't know. I've actually never liked The Last Battle.
I thought it sucked.
Yeah, I don't love it. It's kind of a hard one to digest for me. It's literally, and it's like, call me simplistic, call me naive, call me whatever name you want to call me. It's just sad. I just, it's a little sad. And so far as theologically, and I've, I'm not theologically sound enough I feel like, to have like deeply theological discussions on what Lewis meant in this way or that way or what have you. The only thing that's ever stood out to me about The Last Battle is Susan. And I've a lot of the girls that I follow on Instagram, again, we're all bookish girls, conservative Christian, what have you. We've always talked about, like, they always talk about, like, because again, I brought this up on a previous stream, that Niall Gaiman, whatever his name, that author that defended Rings of Power.
Neil Gaiman.
Gaiman, thank you. I can never say his last name right. He wrote this disgusting essay on Susan, and just really defiled C.S. Lewis in every way imaginable. And that, like, people are like, and to a certain extent, it's kind of no fault of their own. People who aren't faithful don't understand that everyone has the potentiality to be Susan. I walked away from my faith for, 7-10 years during my parents' divorce. I was angry at God, didn't want a thing to do with them. It was a lot. I completely turned my back on God. I just was like, why did you let this happen to us? It's like that whole discussion, why does God let bad things happen? Now there's like a whole story that, like, I refound my faith in Ireland, and that, I turned back to God and, resurrendered my life. That happens to a lot of people, especially young people. Right out of high school, you get into college. Statistically, what do? You stop going to church. You start hanging out with your friends. You lose your way. Susan's fate is not set in stone. We never know what happens to Susan. She could easily turn back and resurrender her life. She's not a lost.
She didn't die on the train.
She didn't. She's going to have to live, very unfortunately, with the loss of her entire family. Literally, she is the only Pevensey left. So she's going to have to live with that and make peace about that. But like that, so like, of all of The Last Battle, Susan is always the thing that I retain the most. It's because, like, literally anyone can be Susan. And Susan, to me, in that moment, is the most relatable, because it's like, we don't know the end of Susan's story. We don't know if she didn't recommit her life to Christ. So there is still hope for her, So I don't know. That's like, I get that there would be like deeply theological conversations about the rest of The Last Battle, but honestly, what I retain has always been Susan.
Absolutely. That is also another thing, like with The Last Battle, is Susan does get a lot of flack, and I think it's undeserved. Like, we saw the seeds of it in all of the other Narnian books. She was always the more hesitant to believe. She was always the more reserved. Like,
I mean, so Lewis himself, here's actually 2 quotes from Lewis himself in his own writings. When people would ask him, is that the books don't tell us what happened to Susan. She is left alive in the world at the end, having by then turned herself into a rather silly, conceited young woman. But there's plenty of time for her to mend, and perhaps she will get to Aslan's country in the end in her own way. I could not write that story myself. Not that I have no hope of Susan's ever getting to Aslan's country, but because I have a feeling that the story of her journey would be longer and more like a grown-up novel than I wanted to write at this point. But I may be mistaken. Why not try it yourself?
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, it's supposed to be open-ended.
Yeah,
it is.
Not every single person is called to be a Lucy, is called to be like the Paul, Sometimes
we're Edmund.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle, a lot of people fumble, a lot of people question and have doubts, and they don't know if God is big enough to solve their problems or be, the person they need the most in their life. So yeah, I know that I understand, but again, I'm not theologically sound enough to debate how Lewis wrote basically the Book of Revelation into Narnia. I just don't have that knowledge base, so I tend to gravitate towards the more like attainable things, which is characters like Susan.
Absolutely.
I think Lucy and Peter are the only ones we never see struggle with their faith in Aslan, although Peter does struggle more than Lucy. Lucy's got the strongest faith, but he never truly like falls away from his belief in Aslan. He does things because they are right. You see Eustace, obviously, with his own struggles with pride. You see Jill struggling with being faithful to Aslan and just, kind of her learning to be a Christian in many ways.
Mhm.
Like every single Narnian has their English or Narnia has their own like struggle with faith in Aslan and coming to that point, and everybody has their own journey. And I think Lewis actually did a really good job talking about how like not everybody's journey is the same. Like we don't all grow up in a faith believing household and have the faithfulness of God fed into our lives on a daily basis. And even if you did, we have our own journeys of dealing with the darkness of our souls and our sin nature in the light of a good God. And we all have that own spot. And there are some people who will never believe, and there are some people who thought they believed but fell away, or people who know the truth and they choose to walk away. Like we all have these all different journeys, and that doesn't mean that Susan never comes back to Narnia. We know she's still alive, but like she is given the opportunity to come back to belief in God. But yeah, we don't know the story about how she handles that grief. Does that grief turn her back to Aslan, or does that grief destroy anything else with that? We don't know.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, I know we were talking about earlier, like, we don't like how Lewis didn't fill in his world as much as, like, we would have liked, because, you know, like, we get Tolkien, who just, like, we get spoiled with Tolkien, where he answers just about every single question that he could possibly answer with the life that he was given and how long he was given, and then we get Lewis, who's just like, it's up to you. And we get frustrated with that because, like, well, we want to know how the story ends. We want to know all of the details. We want to know everything there is to know, but you can't.
Yeah. And I mean, is that not like, I mean, I feel like that just sums up Christianity kind of in a nutshell. We want God to tell us all the things. And it's like, no, you know, it kind of gets back to that, like that quote from Lewis, and I'm gonna kind of botch it, but it's like, if you want an easy religion, don't pick Christianity.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, the scripture comes to my mind about this whole thing with Susan, even though we'll be talking about next time. Remember when when the apostles said to Jesus, well, what about him? And he said, what's that to you? You follow me. The end.
Yeah.
Let Susan
absolutely
look after Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you worry about your own salvation. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, and
or you know, why are you looking at the speck in your brother's eye when you got a plank in your own? You got a thick old wood in your eye. Don't worry about them.
Yeah, and I can probably see C.S. Lewis somewhere when he was writing this and was getting all the feedback and all the backlash, and because it did happen during his life, he'd just saying, dang it, why on earth did I have to write that? I should have just said, yay, here's Susan.
Right?
End.
Like, it could have been super easy. Susan's right. What are you talking about? Susan's been there the whole time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Jacob. Yeah. Now we see through a glass darkly.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of people want Susan to be there, want Susan to have a happy ending because of the fact they identify with her. They're very much like, I see myself as Susan. Well, we don't know what happened to Susan, so it makes me question, it makes me worried about my own self. When yes, you can identify with Susan where she's at that time, but it's supposed to be open-ended to give you that hope that we don't know, and she could come back. She might not, but she could, and we need to be okay with that. What's up, the Gourd King? I highlight your comment, but StreamYards hates me today.
I think this is probably, it is maybe a weird choice that, like, this is one of my favorite books, but I think it's because it's one of my most quoted books, and it's a very specific scene. It's the scene where, and this is because I frequently feel like I identify with this in current culture, where they are all in the new Narnia, and Lucy is trying so hard to help the dwarves understand the goodness around them. And she's like, Aslan, do something, like help them see. And he's like, they've decided that they're not going to see, that this is, he creates this wonderful feast, and they start thinking that they're fighting over, moldy bread and sloppy water, where in Narnia, it's like the most wonderful feast and the best wine and the best meats. And it very frequently feels like that in a world of people who have decided that they do not believe in God and his goodness and his justice, where it's such a different worldview that when you're having a conversation with somebody who does not live in, they do not believe in God, they have decided that that he doesn't exist, that for whatever reasons, that we all have that choice. We are all presented with that choice in life, whether or not we are going to believe in God and choose to believe in him, that they do not believe. And they've decided so firmly that they do not believe, that it's having like a different discussion in different languages. Mm-hmm. Like, how many conversations do we have on a regular basis where, because I view this as a temporary world, that I know that that I am just living in tenth, that this world is not my home, that I feel like I'm out of place because I am out of place. And in that worldview, this is not the end all be all. Like, things can happen in the world, and it's not the end of my world. It doesn't consume my universe, because it's, there's things that are important and you deal with them on a daily basis, and you live faithfully as a Christian in politics and in world culture and all these things. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be in heaven someday with Jesus, and it's going to be way, way better than anything here. And when you are talking with somebody who doesn't believe in God and that they think that this world is everything, it's a much more depressing worldview. And they really are. They're grasping at moldy straw in a stable when there's something that could be so much better. And I've always held on to that picture as kind of like my reminder of when I get really, really frustrated that like somebody is so close to understanding how good God is, and they're just stuck there, that sometimes it is like trying to present fine wine to somebody who's decided that fine wine doesn't exist.
It also, like, just kind of going into the clinical aspect of that, like there are people who believe whatever they want to believe, and they've convinced themselves, like, it is like there are still people who believe that they could probably fly. They're probably in a straitjacket right now, but like it just goes to show, like, I've seen a toddler jump off of a thing trying to think they could fly. Don't give me that trauma again.
Yeah, there was actually a kid in my neighborhood in Ireland that did that. He put on a cape, and yeah, he was okay. He broke an arm.
Oof. See, yeah, my nephew wouldn't have survived because he was in a kitchen, and thankfully he was climbing on an island, and he just jumped, and thankfully I saw that he was jumping, and I ran over and about had a heart attack because I saw a 4-year-old trying to leap far away. And I was like, so, but there are people who do things like that as adults, and there are consequences of those thought processes. We'll go with that.
Sure.
Yeah. We all understand that my vocabulary when I'm on stream tends to go down to a level of a 5-year-old, so
it's okay.
At least that's what it feels like. But it is a crazy concept to think about, that somebody can literally be looking at something with their 2 eyes, but they don't see it. They have convinced themselves it is not there, or it is there, or something of that nature.
Well, I mean, we don't need to go on too long about this, but I mean, think of the lovely individuals who designed the line for Target this past June. I mean, that's the crowd that they are denying something that's right in front of their noses. It's not, that's, when I was in high school, I would have felt like there aren't quite so many of those people. Now it's like, yeah, they do. So it's, I don't know. I like, of all the like kind of theological analogies that he made in the last battle, those dwarves sitting and squabbling over the feast that they thought was moldy bread, I thought was like one of the best, like parables, I guess, to kind of understand how the faithful and the not faithful see things,
Mm-hmm.
There's so many pictures, the culture currently, like the amount of praise that's happening at the end of Narnia for the belief in a lie, and that the belief in that the truth is viewed as idiotic, as stupid, as like really you believe that? Like, how much of an idiot are you to believe that Aslan actually exists? He's never existed. That like they have so bought into this lie as the end of Narnia that they cannot hear the truth, and that the truth sounds horrible to them. Like there's Paul, I don't remember where he says it. It's in scripture, it's in the New Testament. That that the truth falling on the ears of those who do not want to hear it sounds like foolishness.
I think that's either Romans or Galatians.
That you see that tie-in, that like he's the last prince here, the last king, he is speaking truth and speaking truth and speaking truth, and everybody just looks at him and laughs like he's an absolute idiot, because they have walked so far from the truth, and they've embraced the lie of the world so closely that they have been praised for believing this lie. And we look at the world around us, and I'm sure C.S. Lewis looked at the world around him going, man, the people you get praised for embracing the lie. Like, what would he think now?
Probably think the same thing and just say, okay, let's burn it all down.
Right.
Well, also talking about the doors, this also reminds me of Magician's Nephew, which the Gourd King, like, my brain was like, oh, the uncle in Magician's Nephew, when he was brought to Narnia, could not hear the animals speaking to him.
Which they were, those were written back to back.
Yeah, they were. And, the animals tried to think he was a plant and buried him. And he's just thinking that these crazy animals are trying to eat him or something. Like, it's basically the same thing.
He convinced himself that Aslan was not talking and singing, and that he was only a lion, and that was it, to the point that he could not hear the truth and the beauty around him. Except that in that instance, he was the only one. So now we have an absolute reverse. So instead of the professor being the only one who has convinced himself of this, that this is all a lie and it doesn't exist, we have the entire world of Narnia has now convinced themselves that Aslan is a lie and doesn't exist. And we have very, very few truth speakers. And the importance of being a truth speaker, like to continue to speak the truth despite the world telling you that it's wrong, and continue in that steadfastness and that faithfulness despite everything else around us.
Another topic to that kind of not really the same, but we're going to pivot a little bit, is Tashland. How does one who knows Aslan, as some of the Narnians say they do, start to believe in Tashland?
He had already planted the seeds. So if you go back through the book and you have the ape and the cattleman and the cat, who we're not really sure where the cat comes into the scene, but the cat somehow is actually one of like the more devious mindset. Did C.S. Lewis believe cats were evil? I don't know.
I like my cat.
I know, I like mine too. But you have like those three who are conspiring with each other. And if you already have a group of people, we know this, when you want to look at like mob philosophy and how mobs work and how mob mindset works, that if you get people on your side and they are desperate enough to hope and now they believe in this lie, it's very easy to like start twisting that lie, right? And so they start with like, Aslan says this is good because they know that they believe in Aslan. Like, Aslan has told you to do this. This is being done in the name of Aslan. Aslan is angry with you. To like, Aslan and Tash are the same thing. To like, they're not even just like co-people together. They're actually the same God. You've been like worshiping the same person this whole time. And his name isn't Tash and it isn't Aslan. It's actually Tashland. And the interesting thing is, I think that last jump is kind of where they actually lost some of the people, right? Because you had some people who were like, okay, this is all kind of weird, but like, I believe in Aslan. I'm not really sure what else we're supposed to be doing. To to that when they try to make that very quick jump from like Aslan says to do this to Aslan and Tash are like the same thing to Tashlin says this. A bunch of the people go, wait, something's funky here.
Yeah,
But we're being told the same thing by the current culture, right? That like
all of the religions are the same.
Everything is, all religions are the same. You just believe in whatever spiritual thing makes you happy and believe in yourself because you are God and the tree is God, and take care of the planet because the planet is God, and human are a scourge. Like, you want to go down that path. Like, we were already battling the same thing in current culture. Like, once you have stepped away from the faithfulness of like believing that God is who he says he is and that the scripture is inerrant and is true, it is so easy to fall down that very, very, very slippery slope of lies. And that we know, like, go into the screw tape letters and we look at scripture and we look at the screw tape letters. C.S. Lewis points out throughout the screw tape letters, and we know this from scripture and we know this from the world, that Satan's best lies are truths with a twist. And so if you can get people to believe a truth with the twist of a lie, it's very, very easy to take that next step into a deeper lie, into a deeper lie, into a deeper lie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, even what was it? It was a few weeks ago, I think, maybe a month ago, that church that got burned down because lightning struck it.
In Massachusetts, yep.
Yeah, and and you wonder because what they were teaching, like a lot of the theology, a lot of people like try and use religion to do very bad things, and so it makes people like wonder, like, what is real? Like, is Tashlan actually real? Is Aslan real? Like, what is
the
real?
Most
and then
deadly cults are the cults that, like, if you want to go into a study of theology of the cults, which is kind of like one of my favorite side deep holes of theology, is that the deadliest cults, the cults that have had the most loss of human life and the most convincing cults to the people within them who are the most brainwashed into those cults, are the cults who take Jesus and they add they add to the scriptures, they subtract from his deity, and they multiply what you have to do to, like, you're messing with, there's kind of a phrase like you add, you subtract, you multiply, and you divide, when you're looking at like a cult of like, we take out from Jesus, we take away who Jesus is, we add to the scriptures, we do all these things. And we can go into Jehovah's Witness, we can go into the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Like, they've all done things where they add to scripture, they take away from the deity of Jesus, they multiply the things you have to do, but they're all sitting on the edge of truth, right? Like, the people who died in Jonestown did not die for what they believed was a lie.
Mm-hmm. Well,
they had been convinced into a twisted truth.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit of truth mixed with a little bit of just enough of a lie to get a paranoid group of people to fall in line. Like, there's already cultural things happening at the time. All it takes is unrest and people to be nervous and to be anxious, to be looking for something to believe in. The mob mentality of, we need something to believe in. And you have one person who stands up and goes, here, believe in this. This is what God said to do. This is what Aslan said to do. And if you are desperate enough and you are not firm enough in your faith, it is very, very easy to be taken in by the truth with just enough of a lie that it isn't truth. And you see that, we know that's going to happen in the last day. Like, if you're writing about Revelations, we know that's going to happen in the last day. We know that that it's going to get worse, that these are just the birthing pains of the end of the world. Like, sorry, this is not the end of the world. We're not actually, I don't think, close to the end of the world. It's going to get a lot worse before Jesus comes back and goes, yeah, there's enough of this. We know that.
That is also a debate within the why does everything have to be a debate? But it goes back to thinking, like, I guess you drank the Kool-Aid. Where that phrase even comes from was there was a cult, where someone spiked the Kool-Aid, and how do you get tons of people to drink
knowingly drink poisonous Kool-Aid? It wasn't actually Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid would like to point out that it wasn't actually Kool-Aid. It was an off-brand
Well, are you talking about the one that they all self-deleted down in Mexico?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
all right. No, I'm
yes, that's
Yeah.
Jonestown. Yeah.
about.
Yeah, and it was
That's right.
brand. Yes, it was. It was not technically. Yeah, I know.
No, Kool-Aid did actually put out an official statement that it was not Kool-Aid that they drank.
Oh my God.
It was a
Like,
Kool-Aid
the negative
substance.
publicity.
Yes,
Yeah.
because they
And
were
it was. I mean, and to be fair, it is
drinking-
true. When you study it,
They
they
didn't
did
drink
not
this
actually use that. They
substance.
used a similar kind of a
actually-
drink.
Yes, yes. But they were trying to make the poisonous substance taste better.
Gordon
I
King, you're killing me.
Yeah, Hokey. So the moral of the story is only drink real Kool-Aid.
That's
Yeah,
right.
real good.
That's
But
the answer to
they
everything.
knowingly-
You heard it.
It wasn't like he was handing this to the parents and going, "Hey, you should do this." Like, don't go listen. I mean, listen to the audio books, audio tapes if you want to have time. But they actually have the audio recordings of this happening at the end, and these parents were knowingly feeding their children and letting the children pass away first, and you can hear the screams and the cries. Like, they were doing this because they believed it was the right thing. Like, that is how firmly they believed they were doing the right thing. They had believed this lie. And it's important to remember that anybody who's not like theologically, like, how important it is to remember the truth and to stay grounded in scripture and stay grounded in the word of God. Because if you're not grounded in the word of God, and if you're not doing as the Phoenicians, which is the group that Paul praises, is like, good job. He's like, even when you get my letters, you take them back and you compare them to scripture. And they are praised for that. Like, we are told as Christians, like you don't just listen to pastors and read books blindly, because we're all still fallible humans. You need to be comparing everything back to scripture and back to the word of God. And how easy it is for us to just be like those Narnians standing there going, yeah, it sounds right. It sounds like something Aslan would do. I guess Aslan would send us all to the cow, and it sounds great if we're not staying grounded in the truth.
My answer is always Ephesians for things, because that's my favorite of the New Testament. But
Everything's Ephesians.
Ephesians. But no, that definitely was not Ephesians. He like lit Ephesians a new one because of some stuff that was going on in Ephesus. If you want a Bible lesson, that this is not the stream. My degree is a little rusty, but it just I love how the last battle takes those big controversial issues that happen in Revelation, that happen with the end times, and he puts his own spin on it. He makes a lot more controversies, and I think it was meant to, like, this isn't meant to be literal, but a lot of people take it as literal.
Yeah, no, I think it's of all of C.S. Lewis's books, I think that this one should be taken the least literally.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
There is a God, and C.S. Lewis is not he. That's
Right.
Yeah, just because something is
C.S. Lewis would
applicable
agree with
doesn't mean that. Yeah, and I would suspect he would be one of the first people that would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Like, even
like-
in his book Mere Christianity, like, he's like, all of these other denominations are yelling at me. Oops.
Oh gosh, Gord King, you're killing. I mean, he's still killing me with those advertisements. For Kool-Aid.
Right. You want to get away? Try off-brand Kool-Aid. This is like the best and worst advertising for Kool-Aid. I mean, I am looking for sponsors.
Yeah, don't have Kool-Aid. Try Crystal Light.
Yes.
I believe in Crystal Light because I believe in me.
Yeah. Are there any other like thoughts that you guys have for the last battle and stuff? Like anything like we want to?
Were we supposed to read the last battle for this stream? Oh my gosh! No wonder I'm confused.
Yup. Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've really got our stuff together. We are professionals.
We know what we're doing. It's okay, Miss Martin. I didn't read any of it.
It's fine. I skim read.
Oh,
I didn't read it
gosh,
as in
darn
detail.
it!
It
You
was fine.
did say in the last battle, so no wonder I'm so confused. Oh, Jeannie Mac, you said I said we're talking about the silver chair. Oh, okay. Well, then I haven't reread it. Sorry, I suck.
You
but
do
it's
not.
I'll
It's
just say
fine.
about this. I mean, well, oh gosh, just shoot me now.
I think we all owe Jess like, I don't know, a bouquet of flowers because we did not do the homework.
I misread the homework. Yeah, so
homework
for
because
all
she
my
knows
great
where I
thoughts
live.
about the last that's why I kept saying, well, maybe later, and I was like, why are we? Okay, I was confused.
That's fine. I was
like I
gonna
said,
ask like towards the end, like, did I confuse you? Because I also sometimes I'll send messages and it's like, yeah, I said that in the message, and I go back, I'm like, nope, I didn't say that.
I thought we were doing the silver chair. So never mind. Just shoot me now. Like I said, my brain's not really with it. But so like that's what I was like, well, okay. So now it's clear I'm an idiot. Well, no, but I mean, here's my thing about, if we want to talk about like, should Christians read the last battle? Absolutely yes, because here's the thing: you're always going to find things that are wrong, okay, and or I have a real cranky feeling about the way sometimes people view other Christians. And other Christians is just another Christian, okay? It's not God. It's not magisterium. It's not any of that stuff. And because C.S. Lewis did so well with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that everyone's like, see, it's all this. Most people have to read all that. And this is a fact. This is a fact about the book of Revelation. While there are some things that we know for sure, for example, who's going to win at the end and all that, but how it's all going to unfold is not anything that we can say for certain, because there's so much symbolism in it. There's some stuff in there that already happened, because it was talking about the destruction of the temple in this AD. So you know that there's so many different things, and to take it literally. When I say to take it literally, is I'll be more than happy to take it literally after the fact. Yay, that's how it happened. Exactly. I knew that's what it was going to be.
Of course, we all knew the whole time.
For the lamb. But yeah, so this whole idea of, well, I think I told you before, the whole idea of the justification, good works, is a total misreading of that. And remember, C.S. Lewis, Tolkien would sometimes get very frustrated with C.S. Lewis's theological
take on
perspectives.
Things.
Yes. And so, he kind of wanted to, well, that's just all there is to it. But as far as like Tash goes and all that, I didn't see him as anyone in particular. I have seen how people thought he was Allah, and he was trying to make some idea about like some sort of universalism. I don't think that that's what C.S. Lewis was doing. And correct me if I'm wrong. If he did come out and say it, okay, he came out and he said it. But whatever is going on with this whole situation, I think that we can all agree that Tash is a deceiver and he sucks. But people follow deceivers all the time. History is full of that, whether it is a politician, whether it is a friend, whether it is a popular Christian, like C.S. Lewis, even one that everyone loves. I remember, who was it? It might have been you, Untamed Mando. You said that there was some theologian, preacher type. It turned out he recently maybe wasn't.
Oh, yes.
And you said, well, what does that do? Or I didn't know it because I didn't know. And I said, I don't care. You know what I mean? Jesus gave us Judas for a reason.
Right.
And so that there will always be Judases out there. And how easy it is for people to deceive. Well, we've already seen it. We've already seen it in the world. We've already seen, oh, there's this new idea. Doesn't that make you feel good? Okay, well, I'll just believe that. And as far as what people see right before their very eyes, oh my gosh, what you have is, you see it like, oh, look at this politician. He's saying this. No, he's not saying that. And I'm like, he said it with his words, you know? So, yeah. But I do not like the last battle for several reasons. I think it's a very odd ending to it all. And I mean, if I were to judge C.S. Lewis, and I am pointing the finger, the pedal of judgment at him, it is that he should have done a little bit of what he did with Caspian. You know how Caspian appeared young when he was in heaven? He really should have said, and then they all lived a long, good life, because it's very disturbing. As a child, it is disturbing, like it or not, to know that they all died violently. I mean, that's just horrible. Really, really horrible thought. And I would almost say that brings it to the realm of this is not adult literature. This is more adult literature, because children's literature, you just don't kill kids violently like that.
Right. Yeah, like that, like us finding out, it's like, oh yeah, there was a train collision. Everyone passed away who was on the train, which included all besides Susan of the Pevensies. Yeah, I think that's also why, like, I feel like the Silver Chair kind of like is along the same lines of, I don't consider it for small children. Absolutely not. I'd consider it maybe a little bit older, maybe almost young adult, if not like a little bit older.
Sweet little Lucy, she died of blunt force trauma suddenly without getting to prepare or say goodbye to anybody. And Peter, well, he burned alive. And Mom and Dad did too. All their limbs were flying everywhere. Because, you know, that's what happens in a train wreck, for crying out loud, or an explosion. And I've got issues with that. So,
you're not the only one.
That was like, gosh, I think so. Okay, so I don't know if I've said this story. Like, the Chronicles of Narnia were like some of the first books I ever read by myself, because I was so dyslexic and you know, getting over that and learning how to deal with it. So my mom was like crying. I finally sat down and read the Chronicles of Narnia by myself. So this probably would have been like middle schoolish. Like, that was so jarring to me to learn like how they all died. I was like, what? That was a lot to take in as a middle schooler, because like even then, because like, this is gonna sound weird, one of my mom's favorite movies of all time is The Fugitive, and so like I like even just seeing like that visual representation of a train crash, I was like, wow, that was violent.
I agreed. As far as all of the Chronicles of Narnia, the last battle to me feels like the least Narnian of the Narnia books.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, maybe C.S. Lewis was going through a dark phase. Or maybe those dark kids really were on his lawn. He's like, I'm going to kill the children. That's what I'm going to do.
When did his wife pass?
Like, he needed to end the story. Like, he needed an ending because everyone like was bugging him to like finish the story. What happens next? And he needed an ending to the story so that there was no possibility to write another story after that. And he's like, well, like, here's the end of the world, and this is it. But it really is a very dark book compared to, of course, okay, we are talking about the same man whose first fiction series was the Space Trilogy.
Yeah.
Space Trilogy.
I
So this really isn't very dark. This is
very
really
dark.
a very light and happy book. That's the Space Trilogy.
Yeah. I've read actually more of his nonfiction than I've read his fiction. Let me Google it. It might have been, well,
I think I only have The Great Divorce for fiction works for him. I have The Great Divorce.
Yeah.
Not The Great, Great Divorce?
Yeah, I've read a lot of them. So Great Divorce, Abolition of Man, Surprised by Joy, Chronicles of Narnia, Space Trilogy, A Grief Observed. I've read that one. It is.
Oh yeah, that's awful. Surprised by Joy.
Tape Levels. Yes, Surprised by Joy and Screw Tape Letters. I actually read those like back to back, and it was a little jarring to read those back to back. And I'm trying to think of what else. So Lewis's wife died in 1960. When did The Last Battle come out?
Everybody Google. Yeah. Well, I know that really shook his faith big time. But that also was good too, because we were able to go through it with him. Okay, that was in 1956, so that was actually before his wife got cancer. So
he was just
dark anyways.
I mean, fighting in World War I and having World War II. I mean,
yeah, who knows? Yeah. I don't. Just forget everything I said. My brain cells are completely gone. Dark.
Yeah. I mean,
as we discussed earlier.
I mean, for those of you who are able to read quickly, like I was able to read all of the Space Trilogy over like the span of a week when I was in Orlando. For any of you who saw me in Orlando, I was reading the Space Trilogy at the same time. Arkasul was very concerned because I was reading it so fast. I don't know. But that came before the Chronicles of Narnia, and it was a very dark tale, very disturbing. So I can understand that can happen with Lewis's writing, but the fact that this one is so jarring in comparison to the rest of the Chronicles of Narnia, I think that's why all of us are very like, oh, what? Like, why is he writing like this? He's written like this before, but not since, if that makes sense. Write more. Oh. Yes, C.S. Lewis fans were like, keep writing more things, and I think Lewis's realm was more in the nonfiction, or the nonfiction with the fiction. He kind of like tries to bridge the two. Oh, okay, Ark. He wasn't concerned. He just found it cool that I was able to read and understand what I was reading, because it's like the Space Trilogy. I don't remember where I put it. It's about as thick as this. Like all of the Chronicles of Narnia. The Space Trilogy is about as thick as this, so it is what it is. Any last final thoughts on the last battle?
Oh. Well, I'm gonna have a whole bunch of notes ready for next month. I'm an idiot. Well, no, I think that it's all clear. It makes you think. I mean, I got to give him that credit for that. It does. And this is probably, out of all the books, I mentioned this earlier, it's parental guidance. You want to read this one with your kids and talk about it, because there's just so many deep things, and things that I think can also be misunderstood, and things that are like is C.S. Lewis office rocker? What's this? What's going on? I mean, the last book we had Jill Poole and all that. We were having fun, and now we're being blown up in a train. And the Antichrist and Satan and deceivers and all that good stuff.
Very different.
I think it's interesting. I first read this series in under a week, all of the books, when I was right after my 7th birthday. And brain glossed over that. I remember, I remember reading about the dwarves. I remember that scene. I remember Susan, like those pivotal things, but definitely did not struggle with their deaths, and did not struggle with the, Antichrist whole thing. That was not impactful on my brain at all in my reading of the book and the entire series in a week. But definitely I had to ask more questions as I got older. And, my mom, I've generally had I've had good discernment in reading for my life long enough that my mom trusted me more than my brothers, that if I felt like something was off, that I was going to stop reading it. Because I had pretty strong compass on right and wrong and what I was comfortable reading. And so that obviously did not pose a question. Mom doesn't remember me talking to her about it, because I was with my parents camping this last weekend. And so I was like, Mom, do you remember me bringing this up? And she's like, nope. But as I also mentioned, my mom's never read the book. She did not pre-read most of the books I read as a kid.
Moral of the story, pre-read books.
Pre-read your books. I actually did the pre-reading of books for my brother. My mom handed me that task because my brothers were 4 and 6 years younger than me. And so I was generally ahead of them reading, and she trusted my judgment better than both of my brothers when it came to books.
Oh dear.
And but I still love so many aspects of this book. Like it's just like any fiction book. Like I think it's easy to be as a Christian. Like, man, C.S. Lewis was a Christian and Tolkien was a Christian, and like compare them to scripture, especially since C.S. Lewis wrote his books very allegorical. That
it's like, do you want allegory? Here you go.
So yeah, it's like a vomit of allegory in his own world. That we don't do the same thing for non-Christian fiction writers. Like I'm not reading through the wheel of time going, man, there's so many images of Christ. And you can. We can do that to the point where it's disturbing. If anybody has been on the internet recently and somehow gets to the corner of the internet where there was a church that made a Simba Easter production where Simba was Jesus dying on the cross with Adele songs and Beyonce music, we can go way too far as Christians and try to read Christ into everything. Just like we can read Satan into everything, we want to read Christ into everything. And to be really careful as Christians when we're reading that we give, even when someone is a Christian, that we give space for the fact that they are human and that we remember that this is not theological works, that this is a fantasy fiction world specifically. We can have those more theological discussions about his nonfiction work that were meant as nonfiction theological discussions. That it is fun to read and to have all of these ideas of these what ifs. And it is important to read these books probably with your kids because they will bring up questions of moralities and right and wrong and things like that. But to also appreciate his creative brain for what it is, and that you read the books as a whole. It's easy to give people just The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and walk away from the series and never read anything else. And like, it's like dipping your toe into the swimming pool and going, oh, that was nice, and walking away and missing the richness of the rest of the world. And even if everyone doesn't love every single book, because we all have our own favorite books, read them all. Like read all of them and learn to appreciate all of C.S. Lewis's world the way that he wrote it, because he chose to write it that way, and be okay with like, yeah, I have books that are definitely not my favorite. I appreciate Puddleglum more. Silverchair is still maybe one of my lesser favorite books. It's just not one of my favorite books. It's not one that I've ever connected with. I appreciate Puddleglum and his pessimistic view on the world and his faithfulness in Christ.
Was like the
I kind of identify with him a little bit.
I love that he was based off of Lewis's Gardener. I love that. Love it.
So you remember those like quizzes you would take as a kid all the time online? And it'd be like, which Narnian character were you? I was always so offended that I was assigned Puddleglum every single one of those quizzes I ever took. I was so offended. I'm like, there is so much. I would try to twist the quizzes so I would get like Jewel the Unicorn or like all these other cool characters. I always got Puddleglum, and now I'm reading the book as an adult, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. It's actually kind of not totally like a diss. I felt like it was like the biggest diss. Like look at you, like you're this crazy little marsh wiggle frog thing. Like ha ha ha. And now,
moral of story: don't take Chronicles of Narnia personality tests.
Right, but now I go, man, like yeah, I definitely have a more pessimistic view of the world in general, and it's harder for me to find the bright side of things versus the gloomy side of things. But that's why we're friends, loyal and faithful, and like I appreciate Puddleglum's faithfulness and his loyalty to Aslan, even when he doesn't even know and he's so confused in his own mind. Like just hold on to that and all of those things. Like if it's not your favorite book, still read the whole series. Appreciate C.S. Lewis's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we've got people who have lives outside of the interwebs.
Imagine that.
I know, but I'm gonna miss talking with all of you guys. We need to find some other series we can all read together.
Actually, I was gonna talk to you backstage. Gosh dang it. See, we can't do like this once a month type thing. We'll figure this out.
I know you're going to be reading The Witcher soon. I don't really know if I want to delve into that series, so I won't join you on that. But we can do other ones.
Yes. So Smile a While, what you got going on besides taking care of your plants that you and our friend, what is up with all of my friends loving plants? And I'm just like, I kill them.
We've already talked about this. We can continue discussing this. You cannot judge your ability to keep plants alive based on the apartment you currently live in. I will be sporadically on the internet. We'll see where I end up in chats. There was a couple chats I jumped into this week, and people were like, "Oh, you're alive. You're not dead." I'm like, "Yeah, I haven't really been around. I have been, like,
life
going through the Wheel of Time series and just like binge listening to the series, which, you know, each of the books are substantial books. So most of my free time is there, but I started a new job in early August and survived 115-degree days inside of a warehouse that is also heated. So I just kind of disappeared off the planet. We're getting better. We're getting back into life, but I'll be around. Hopefully I'll be able to get on we'll figure out something to do together in October. But I should start more life and maybe more internet this winter. Once I get through both of my sister-in-laws are due 10 days apart. And in the middle of those 10 days, I'm involved in a wedding that one of my brothers is supposed to be in. So once we get through that and through all of the wedding stuff between now and the end of September, I might be back online again. We'll see. If I'm still disappeared in October, somebody reach out and make sure I'm not dead.
I mean, I know where you live, so I'll find a way to go up the 20 hours to drive up there or something. I don't know.
You have my mom's cell phone number, probably. Just text her.
You're like, is your daughter dead? She would probably freak out if she's like, what?
Hey, Elijah goes to church with my brother and his wife. He can just track down. I'll tell her my brother's last name and can track down and make sure I'm not dead.
We haven't been in a while because of work, but hopefully that'll change soon.
Makes sense. So yeah, what's going on with you, Elijah, besides the world burning down?
Yeah, geez almighty, this past 2 weeks. I really have not been active on my Bookstagram account hardly at all. I just I don't know, I got a little burned out of posting, and my reading has been sporadic. And again, we went to visit my family in August, and ever since we got back, literally it's just been one thing after another, after another, after another. So yeah, life is just, I don't know. And I've also I've developed a very unhealthy addiction to Animal Crossing. So, there's that. It's helped me stay sane. So yeah, I don't know. I'm reading a lot. I'm just not posting terribly much. So yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping here soon I will get back into being a little more of a socialite. I say that every single stream, and it has not happened once yet. But
no worries, you have a life. It's fine.
Yeah. And October is also going to be an incredibly busy month for us as well. So, that there's that. So, yeah, so I don't know. I'm trying to I just read Michael R. Miller's Songs of Chaos, the first 3 books in it's a Dragon Rider series. It's not the best thing in the whole wide world, but literally I kind of equated it to the old style of storytelling, kind of like the animated Hobbit, the last Unicorn, kind of like that era of cartoons. If you kind of put that lens on these books, they're actually really good. They're a little campy. They're unapologetically campy, but they're still good, and I had a good time reading them. I'm hopefully going to get up a review. So it's 5 books. Book 3 just came out this past July, so probably book 4 and 5 is going to be out a ways. He's a young Scottish author, and I really am enjoying them. So I'm hopefully going to have a review up of those books soon. And then I've been reading Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which very much reminds me of the wars of religion in Europe during the 16th century. It's really good. It's intense and it's good. It's a standalone, which is nice. And then I'm also reading Brandon Sanderson's Skyward series, which is a YA science fiction series, and I like it. It's good. It's very YA, but it's clean. It's straightforward. Very much a protagonist having to learn how to not be an argumentative little girl. She's not a Mary Sue, so I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I'm reading a lot. I'm just not posting about it very much. So
And that's fine. You're allowed to have a private life. It's fine. Like, I promise it's okay to have a private life. All right, Miss Martin Muse, what have you got going on?
Well, when I'm not having a nervous breakdown and having all my brain cells flying out and forgetting things, I am doing, let's see, I tomorrow is Sunday's always Catholic weddings. We're going to do Mary Ark of the Covenant. So a lot of Ark of the Covenantin things. I have Tuesday night is usually pub crawl. We're going to see though about guests. It can be a bit flexible. It's our open interview show. And then Wednesday, We the People. We're going through the Constitution. We will be on Article 3. Article 1. Article 3. Sorry. The one with the Supreme Court. And then, of course, musings every now and then. Whatever pops up in my mind, it just might pop up. So that's
Very
that.
nice.
And so please subscribe at Miss Martin Muses, where I talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, happy, sad, or just really ticks me off and all that jazz.
I've been really enjoying
yeah,
your
I'm on
Catholic
Instagram.
Explains. I forgot to put your Instagram. Did I forget to put? I forgot to put your.
I
Instagram.
forgot to say I had anything. I'm technically on Twitter. I look at it every once in a while. Mostly I use it to keep up with people's stream schedules a little bit. In the YouTube world of people I try to follow. Instagram is, follow me on Instagram. It's at Smile a While for me. And I post pictures of mostly just what I'm doing in my life. So lately it's been steam engines and my garden.
Very nice garden pics. It makes me jealous and want to garden, but we all know what'll happen. So for me, every Monday, Kick exclusive, I am playing Pathfinder, which for those of you who don't know what Pathfinder is, it is a type of Dungeons and Dragons tabletop RPG on my Kick, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please, if you want to see Arkasul be stupid and crazy, and for some reason his character peed on me one episode, it was weird. Please join that on my Kick.
Is that different than Ark normally is?
He doesn't generally pee on random people, but hey, I don't know. What do I know?
He shoots your dog out of a cannon in Sea of Thieves.
Yes, he does.
Like, that's not that far of a step in the world of insanity.
It is. It's not that far. My Twitch streaming is a little bit sporadic and chaotic because I've also been a guest on Jacob Ironside's channel for a bit, and also Rip, his rooster. For those of you who don't know, his rooster recently passed away because a kitty cat decided to eat it. A bobcat. And on Thursdays, I have been reviewing Ahsoka with Roman of the Empire, and all of us are losing our mind. And if Bobin, if you were still here in the chat, he would probably say Sabine is the best character. I will shoot you and yeet you out of my chat so fast because Sabine
once again
needs to be
is that
shot
really
out of a cannon.
that different than normal? You losing your mind?
Okay. And then Fridays has probably mostly been my Sea of Thieves streams because Thursdays have been I've been on Roman's channel, so Fridays Sea of Thieves. Please don't forget to redeem the rum shots. I'm thinking about switching it from channel points to bits so that way I can actually get money to pay for the alcohol that I'm drinking on the stream because it gets expensive. And then next Saturday we'll be going back again into Witcher, and it is going to be the Sword of Destiny. I was like, the book's like over here. So we're going to be doing Sword of Destiny next Saturday. So love you guys so much. Please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure you are also following and subscribing to these wonderful ladies on the panel. We love you all. Mwah! And this is Toodles for now. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.